He's an astronomer. He doesn't like Aristotle's idea that the stars twinkling in the sky are getting their light from the sun. He says they're autonomous sources of light. It's possible that he observed a transit of Venus. He's a geologist. He's one of the world's great early logicians. Mathematics, alchemy, and also medicine. That's how he's best known in the West, and he has a galvanic impact on the evolution of Western medicine. So this is his theological basis for it all, underlying it. Burhan as-Siddiqeen, well, this sounds like theology, metaphysics rather than science, but they, in that world where philosophy and natural philosophy were closely bound up, one of the most important medieval arguments, maybe cosmological, maybe ontological, for the existence of a first cause. It's philosophical, really, rather than looking like the familiar personal God of the Semitic religions, but it's very powerful. He thought there must be a wajib al-wujud, a necessary existent. Aristotle had thought that you could work that out just by looking at the order that exists in the world, a kind of argument from design. But Avicenna bumps it up to a higher, more sophisticated level with this proof of the truthful. He thought that the complete set of existing entities, all the existence that are out there, have to have a non-contingent cause. Otherwise, it would just be part of the set of contingent entities. So logically, there must be a cause behind everything. It's more complicated than that, but this becomes part of the framework for medieval European scholasticism, still entertained by some theologians and philosophers of religion to this day. So it's moving beyond straightforward arguments from design, look at how nicely everything is made, and moving into something that's more abstract about the nature of being itself. And then the medicine, well, Avicenna's canon of medicine, Al-Qanun fi at-Tibb, 5 volumes. The first volume, Principles, Diet. Why do people get sick? The humoral theory, the 4 humors. Volume 2, on the medical materials available. Section 3, Diagnosis and Treatment of Single-Part Ailments. Diagnosis and treatments of diseases affecting the whole body or affecting multiple organs. And then a formulary, particularly influentially, lists an enormous number of simples and about 650 compound drugs. This is translated into Latin again by Gerard of Cremona. And in Cambridge, we're still using this book to teach medical students in the first half of the 17th century. The thing lasts almost 1,000 years as a kind of pillar of medicine. And there are still some in the complementary medicine world who will find much of this, despite the apparent outmodedness of the humoral system, to be of value. It's a kind of complementary therapy that is still used by many. So this becomes a pandemic. The Avicennan pandemic. The book goes everywhere, goes into multiple cultures, East as well as West. You can see there that there's, I take it, a Japanese translation. There is the first Arabic edition in Rome in the 16th century, subsidized by the Pope himself. Various other Latin translations. There you have a New Age text, perhaps Avicenna's Medicine for the Complementary Therapists. Still going strong, in fact. Avicenna, maybe the greatest medical writer ever, and until the 17th century still, what was being taught across Europe as well as the Middle East. But we must move on. A little bit further east this time, Nasiruddin Tusi, no less colourful a character. He's from Turs, which is top right-hand corner of what's now Iran, now a fairly small place, but a great city which produced the likes of Ghazali, the poet Firdausi, and so forth, a major hub of civilization. But the Mongols are on the horizon. Everybody's wondering what to do because they destroy Khawarazm, they leave piles of skulls in their wake. The dreaded Gulagu, grandson of Genghis Khan, will in 1258 destroy even the city of Baghdad. And according to the chroniclers, those who survived, The books of the city were thrown into the Tigris, and the Mongol warriors were able to ride their horses across the river. So great was the cultural destruction. The greatest single traumatic event, really, in the history of the civilization. So he leaves Tors, and he goes to seek a kind of bunker. There's a group called the Ismailis, very militant, but philosophically minded at the time, following an infallible imam who occupied these inaccessible, unstormable fortresses in remote corners of the Middle East. And he goes to the most famous of these of all, the castle of Alamut. And there he is patronized by the Ismailis, and he builds an observatory. And he stays there for 30 years. Other refugee scientists join him, and he notes the destruction, sadly, of his city of Tors, the city of Nishapur. All of Central Asia really becomes a smoking ruin. But Alamut survives, but then Gulagu lays siege to this impregnable fortress in the middle of nowhere, a 7-year siege. We're told that eventually they give up, not because they're running out of food and drink, they've got plenty of that left, but because their clothes are so threadbare that they're falling off their bodies and they're almost naked and it's cold and they surrender. Torsi survives. He's a smart guy. He sees the writing on the wall. He negotiates with Gulagu, Genghis Khan's grandson, as saying, well, I can do good astrological charts for you. Look at my observatory. I want a research grant. Grant comes back, approved, the green light. And he goes to Gulagu's capital of Maraga and sets up another, even greater observatory, where he gathers surviving scholars. And this is what's left of it. It isn't really much. But there was an enormous sextant there, about 40 feet high, a mural sextant which enabled a very accurate depiction of the altitude of any celestial object. It had a kind of curve to it and a sliding thing which enabled you to measure not just minutes but also seconds of arc. So this is the heavens measured more precisely than ever before. Another thing that he does, which is kind of important when this stuff, by complex routes, filters into Europe, is this thing that we call the Torsi couplet, or the Torsi couple. This resolves one of the weird problems of the old Ptolemaic system of astronomy, which insisted that the Earth had to be the center of the solar system. If you believe in that, the ancient Greeks all believed in it, with a few exceptions, Aristarchus and a few cranks on the margins. But basically, it's a heliocentric system. On the margins, you can see at night, on a clear night, the planets are indeed going around the Earth. It's kind of obvious, the sun and the moon going around the Earth. But their speeds are variable. This is because of the elliptic nature of their orbits and other things that we've since been able to work out perfectly, but that seemed very awkward. Why should Mars slow down? Why should sometimes they seem to go backwards? So they came up with various strange solutions, including this idea of the equant, which is that black spot, which is some way from the center of the solar system. And in order to get rid of this really inelegant solution, Torsi derived this couple. You can see the manuscript on the left. He decided that if the epicycle, the circle within which the planet is revolving, is in a larger circle, and the diameter of the smaller circle is exactly half of the diameter of the larger circle, then you can account for everything moving around in this way without having this equant in the way. A major advance on the old Ptolemaic system. It's still heliocentric, but it seems that various travelers, somebody called Guillaume de Postel, who was a wandering astronomer, who then wrote his memoirs, and others managed to get it into the literary world, which Copernicus occupied. It's a rather complex teleology, but it does seem that this is one of the factors. Islamic astronomy never really cracked the issue of the sun being at the center, but these are major steps in that direction. Commentary on the Almagest, another of his books. Memoir on Astronomy. which Al-Khalili calls the most important and original book on astronomy to be written in the medieval world, refined further by Ibn Shatir, the great astronomer of Damascus in 1375. So this is all impressive stuff. It's all based on the insistence that one has to check the facts with observatories, with dark chambers, with investigating for oneself, which the Byzantines had not done. But then the question, which I alluded to at the outset, begins: what went wrong? The title of Bernard Lewis's famous book. Why is it that this civilization, which was ahead of the West and giving the West all of its key terms, even many of its star names? I told my amazed son last week that the name of Arsenal Football Club is actually an Arabic name.